Hello and welcome to my channel, A Joyful Endeavor. I am Kezia and I am a knitter based in Los Angeles. And I would probably call myself a maker. And so this is my first time ever filming what I knit in a year, 2025. And I'm going to include some sewing as well as some other non-related knitting things, because this year really was about me getting back into being a person who makes things, and it's been really cool to see how that has progressed for me. And looking back at the year, I actually am very, very proud of myself, even though I maybe haven't made like 55 sweaters or something, as some of these videos show, which are always so inspiring. But honestly, that hasn't been the case for me. I have been knitting for over 10 years. It's always been something that has been an ebb and a flow. So there have been moments when I've been really into it, and then moments when I have maybe let it go completely. And creativity has always been something that I have wanted to have at the center of my life and of my existence. So it's been really, really inspiring and cool to see myself head into 2025 with that goal, and then to get to the end of it and have seen myself be successful with that goal. And I might be looking over here at my Ravelry for some notes, but I'm going to just dive in, and we'll just start with my most recent finished garment, which is this top, which is, let's see, the Gregoria Fibers Vilma top. And I knit it in Sandnes Garn Linné in Regatta Blue. I knit the size 4. I think if I were to knit it again, although my gauge swatch was absolutely correct, I think I chose the wrong size for myself. I think I would knit at least one size smaller, just because I would potentially want to be able to wear this as just a top, which it absolutely can be worn as a top, but you can see that it's quite a low arm's eye, and I would potentially want it to just be a little bit shorter, a little bit more cropped. Well, not cropped, a little bit tighter up. And I think that would be easily done with just making it one size or two sizes smaller. But overall, love it, and I can input some video of me wearing it and show you what it looks like. I really like it. It is oversized, but I've found that wearing it oversized it makes it so I can wear it with oversized garments, and it looks really good still. And that's pretty exciting to me. I actually had a whole video. I did a Vlogmas series or a Craftmas series, and one of the videos I had finished this in December, so I took some video content of myself trying to style this. And so if you are interested in seeing even more of styling options, you can see it in that video. But yeah, I really love it. I think I might even make it again. I've seen so many versions in white, and that looks really beautiful, and I could see myself wanting a white one. And it was actually very fun to knit. I think what I would do in the future, it has you do a cast on that, man, what's the right word for it? I should know this. You cast on a provisional cast on. So that means that your stitches are still live. They're held on to a different yarn that is not part of the yarn that you're knitting up. Yeah, and it's bottom up, which is interesting. But I think what I would do in the future is it doesn't actually need to be knit here from and up. It can actually start from the bottom. So I think I would change that. And I would make a smaller size. But overall, I really enjoyed knitting it. I knit it a lot when I was in Spain, and I have a lot of really fond memories of making this garment. And it's, yeah, one of my favorite makes. I mean, Honestly, I really, really love pretty much everything I made this year, maybe except for one thing, which I actually haven't worn at all. So we'll get to that one. But that is the Vilma top. And next we will, let's see, since I'm wearing this, that's why we talked about this one first. But let's go in order of finished object. And we'll start from the beginning of the year and then work our way till December, till now. Great job. So the first thing that I actually made was this top, which, I should know. I do know. Yeah. Swim Style Patterns. This is the Andy set. And I made just the top with I made a sleeve. No, I didn't do there's a long sleeve option. I did the sleeveless option, and I did the tie, just a short tie instead of the long tie, because you could do one that's like a lot longer so you can tie it in a bow or something. But I made this, I think I finished it in February. I started it and finished it in February, and I've worn it a ton. I really like it. It actually went with me to Spain, and it's been a really fun piece to have in my wardrobe. And I think, sadly, that is one of the only things that I sewed this year. I used a linen from the We Are the Fabric Store, or the Fabric Store. They are also New Zealand based, and I bought that fabric when I was visiting a friend in New Zealand, and it's kind of like a brick red linen, and their linens are really nice. They find dead stock materials, and they also create their own premium linens, but I believe that was a dead stock linen, I think. But yeah, I love that top. I've worn it a ton. I probably should give it an iron. Yeah, I think if I were to make this again, it has kind of a double up. There's a lot of fabric at the top here, so you maybe would want it to scrunch all the way, the scrunching kind of doesn't stay in the top part. So when I'm wearing it, it always tends to scrunch down in the bottom, which isn't terrible, but I wouldn't have minded if there was maybe a little bit less fabric at the top here from the casing, or just the facing here. That would have maybe made it so that it would have laid more similar to the bottom part of this casing. But overall, very happy with it. Worn it a ton. Might even make the skirt that goes with it, because I have that printed out, but I have yet to make it. So that is my Andy top. And then the only other thing that I sewed was actually a refashion, or just a kind of like a mending, I guess. So it's just these jeans that I thrifted from, they're an H&M jean that has actually like a rip in the knee. But I really, really liked them, but they were so big. They weren't that big. They would fit my leg and my hip and my thigh and my leg, but then they were really big in the waist. So I wanted to see what I could do and if I could take it apart. So I opened up here and took it in. You can see the seam here. I hid it better on this side, or I actually put it beneath this belt loop. But I've worn these so much since I finished that little modification, and honestly, that was kind of the end of sewing garments for myself. I do have one sewing project that I worked on that I don't have with me, and I will put some pictures of the process and also the finished object, but it's not fully finished in like a easy to look at way. So you'll see what I'm talking about. But it is a quilt, a baby quilt that I made for my friend who was having a baby, and they really like fun and bright colors, and I wanted to make something that fit that. And so I just kind of went off of the colors that I had of a couple fabrics, and I went to a reclaim store that we have here in Pasadena, Um, it's called Remainders, and there's so many different supplies for crafts or essentially any like knitting, sewing, yarn, fiber related things. There's also some cards and like scrapbooking type of things there as well. But I went there and got the kind of filled out the rest of the what I would need for that quilt, and then I cranked it out. I think I made it in like a week or a week and a half and gave it to them. And it was a really, really fun project, and it's really cool to have friends who are having babies and be able to make them something that can be a little bit more like personalized or sentimental. And yeah, that would be, I think, the final sewing thing that I've made this year. And then, let's see, I was working on this Sophie scarf, which I probably made a little bit of an error here in some of the increases and decreases. I have honestly such a hard time with the increases and decreases on this specific pattern. And I don't think I actually ever blocked this. And I did finish it. I started it in the very, very end of 2023. I worked on it in the beginning of 2024 and then didn't pick it up again until February 2025. And then I worked on it pretty consistently until it was finished. And yeah, I still haven't blocked it and still haven't worn it. I've put it on just to like, but I don't really like how it fits, and so therefore I haven't worn it. And I actually forgot that I even made this year. But as I was thinking back on all the things I made, I was like, well, it's funny that I wasn't really knitting until like for some reason I decided to knit some socks, which we'll get to that. But I was trying to remember why I had decided that I was going to pick back up knitting. And then I kind of like jogged my memory that I had picked this up to finish it. And then I actually cast on another Sophie scarf because I just love the concept. I love the process of knitting. I love how like soothing it is and how you can just have a small project with you kind of anywhere, and it's something you can bring with you and you can have conversations with people, or you can work on something while you're, I just love I love the process of knitting. And so I didn't really have any like new projects that I wanted to make. I hadn't really looked into any. So I just like, oh, well, it's easy to just cast something else on. So I just cast on another Sophie scarf. And then I think I realized I have made, that would be my third one. And I haven't really ever worn them. And why am I just consistently knitting the same thing again and again? Like you might as well like knit the same thing and then take it apart and then knit it again and take it apart. So I decided I should move on to a different project and start figuring out what that could be. I know it's kind of silly, but I actually don't know what yarn this is. I have a bunch of stash yarn from friends who got rid of yarn, and also just my own collection of yarn from years and years and years of being in the fiber world. And I have no idea what yarn this is. It kind of feels like a cotton, and it's kind of a mustardy color, or like a mustardy brown color. But yeah, I have no clue what yarn it is, and I will try to wear it. But yeah, this is the most forgotten knit from 2025, and I think I learned a lot about just looking at what's out there pattern wise and being a little bit more intentional about what I'm spending my time on. And that has been actually kind of a fun part about this whole thing. Let's see, that will bring us to my next finished object, which, okay, I believe it was this, which I made. I wanted kind of just like a bite-sized little project that I could work on, and I had this frame just sitting on my entry table, empty. And so I decided to make a little like quote that could kind of be something that would be a little bit inspirational for myself when I came in to my apartment or whenever I happen to look at it. And so it says, gift yourself perspective, with perspective kind of being off in the, 1-point perspective fashion manner. And I just did it all with marker. I actually made 2, and I took one to my local art. We have like these little book library things where you can take a book and leave a book if you want. And we have a few of them in our area that are also for art. So there's one specifically that I took this piece to, and I wrote a little note about what it meant to me, left it on the back and left it there. And actually, ironically, I like that color way better. I don't know why I kept this one for myself. Maybe because the red matched the strawberries. I think that's why. But it was a fun experiment. It was something fun to work on. It's nice to sometimes have a project that you can get done in I think it took me 2 or 3 hours, and it made as part of my apartment a little bit more personalized and a little bit sweet and nice. And it's just a little reminder that if you're stressed out or disappointed or anything about how things are going in life, if you can just if I can remember to take a step back and give myself that perspective of where I've come from, where I am now, then that can really help me to ground myself and also recognize the progress and the successes and the wins that have come along the way, and not just be disappointed or frustrated with where I maybe find myself frustrated about lack of major big progress. So that's just a fun little project that I worked on, and it belongs on my little table, and I keep it there, and it makes me happy. And I actually I filmed it for YouTube and then never posted it. So maybe if anyone actually wants to see that, leave a comment and tell me, and I will put it together and actually make a video out of it. But for now, it will just continue living on my table. The next thing that I finished was basic sock number 1, which is featuring the heel flap and gusset, and that is a pattern in Summer Lee's The Sock Project book. And I used xoxo cottage sock yarn for this in 12 sprout. It's a kind of a chartreusey, kind of greenish yellowish color, probably leans a little bit more yellow. I actually hadn't really worn them very much, except to just jump around in my apartment. Wow, I'm just picking pills off. Don't mind me. And I honestly, let's see, the first one took me 3 months to make, and then the second one took me about a month to make. And when I've seen people on YouTube making socks in a week, a pair of socks in a week, I'm just like, wow, that's amazing that people can do that. I do think that I could probably succeed at that now. But yeah, I just let these kind of be just the little project that I was working on, and I have a lot of pictures of myself bringing them to the coffee shop with me in the morning on Saturday, and that probably was the only time that I worked on them. But let's see. Yeah, I cast on the size large, and I think I did 1 needle size down from the suggested needle. I also think I got better at knitting from one sock to the next, so you can see that I was just a little bit more tight on my second sock than my first sock. And I also made a mistake of not looking at the pattern, thinking that I knew this pattern backwards and forwards after making one sock. And so you'll see that here I followed the pattern and did a 2x1 rib for the band. And then for the second sock, I just did a 1x1. So yeah, it is stretchy though. And honestly, maybe more stretchy than 2x1, which could just be my cast on. as well. But I hadn't really worn them, and then at some point I watched a video where one of the people who's like a prolific sock maker, which it might have been those twins who knit, maybe. One of them was talking about how, it could have been a different YouTuber, how they wear a cotton sock underneath their hand knit socks so that they don't have to wash their hand knit socks as often. And then once they've worn their hand knit socks a few times, they'll put them into a basket, and then once they get enough filled into their basket, they would then hand wash them. So after making these, I had a lot of fun making them, but I didn't really wear them, and I sort of felt like it just seemed sort of unsustainable to wear them. But once I heard that process, I have started wearing them, and I have worn socks underneath, and I actually really like that. I like not sweating on these, and it makes me inspired to want to make some more socks. So I think that I also think that it's a really fun way to maybe play with some different knitting techniques, or different knitting patterns, or cables, or color work, or whatever. And it's just a nice, like, smaller type of project rather than committing to making like a color work sweater or an intarsia sweater or something. So that is something that I'm considering, trying a few different techniques on a sock, because it will be done seemingly faster than a big knitting project before I commit to a technique or a strategy that I maybe don't actually love doing. So that is my one pair of socks that I made this year, and I was finished with them in July. The next thing that I knit was a little strawberry, and it's a little keychain. I actually made quite a few, and I didn't ever give them a full purpose. This one has lived on my bag, but let's see. I used a cotton from my stash. I don't know what type of cotton it was, but yeah, kind of a dishy. I think it was called dishy. And then this is Sanis Garn Linné in, what green is this? I don't actually know, but Sanis Garn Linné for sure. And I really love how these turned out. They're fun. They're just like quick projects. You can make one in like 2 to 3 hours. Probably if you're a really fast knitter, you probably can make it faster. Usually I'm making one while like reading a book, listening to a book or something. But they're really fun, little cute crafties. And it was fun to I got a free pattern from Ravelry. I think it's literally called Strawberry by Linda Dawkins. And there are parts of that pattern that don't make that much sense. I think this was the one that I made first, and I iterated. I found different ways to make the pattern, by starting with an I cord here, working my way down, then making these leaves, and then casting on directly onto this piece and starting a little bit further along the pattern instead of how she has you make it, which is the red part of the strawberry, like an innermost part here, going all the way down to here, and then you make this, and then she says to then put a I cord onto it. So I feel like I started making it in a way that was a little bit easier to actually get all the way through in a faster manner. And I think they're really cute, and I haven't really given them much of a purpose. I think that I was thinking that these could be Christmas ornaments or keychains, and then I haven't actually given them a real purpose or gifted them to anybody like I was thinking. They've just kind of been sitting in my bowl and making me happy. So that's my strawberry story. I did make one in July, and I finished it that day, and then I think I made them randomly throughout that month. Maybe, yeah, throughout July. Maybe I made my final one in August or something. But that was really fun, and that leads me to the project that I cast on at the very, very, very beginning of August, which is Panda by Susan B. Anderson. And I didn't have the correct anything for this, so I went and picked up, I believe it was Loops and Threads yarn from Michael's, and also I had a random needle. I think it was like a size 6 US needle, and I just went for it. Like, the yarn wasn't the right size, the needle wasn't the right size, and I knit this cutie pie, and he looks a little bit derpy compared to the actual picture that Susan B. Anderson has in her pattern. But so that I was making this for a friend, but then I ended up deciding to keep it. And so he has been living with me since I finished him. And he also is supposed to have a sweater, a little cute hooded sweater. But because I decided not to give this to my friend, I didn't finish making that hooded sweater. I didn't even start making that hooded sweater. And I really wanted it to be a little bit more to size. So I decided that I would make another one, but didn't proceed to cast on that. I then have just kind of held on to him, and he's lived out here in my living room with me, usually sitting on this chair, and he makes me happy, and he's cute and funny looking, and yeah, really fun pattern, really easy to follow. There are a bunch of times where she says in the pattern not to stuff it too much, and I think that I probably should have stuffed him a little bit more. I don't know why I was so like paranoid about stuffing him too much, and so now he feels just like a little bit like I'm almost considering opening him up again and stuffing him a bit more. But I do think I stuffed his arms well, so I'll give myself that. But overall, very, very cute, and he's been living with me, and I love him. And yeah, that's him. And then we come to me actually making a garment. So this is the Step-by-Step Cardigan by Florence Miller, and I will input video of me wearing her. Okay, so I made a size 3. I used US 10, so 6mm needle. I'm sort of questioning if I actually used a US 10. I'm gonna believe what I am reading, but I also question if I did that. It seems a little bit crazy. And then I used Blue Sky Fibers Extra Aran? Yeah, Blue Sky Fibers Extra Aran yarn in Mulberry Wine. This is a wool and alpaca blend, and it is so soft. My only complaint is that it is really, really pilly. And I've actually already depilled this. I cast this on. I got this yarn on my birthday as like a little birthday gift for myself, and I cast it on and finished it by October. I finished it October 10th, and I've worn it so much since finishing it, and literally the very first day that I ever wore it, it started pilling, and it's just continued to pill and pill and pill, and that's been a little bit frustrating for me. So in general, like, it was a good thing to learn that that yarn is very pilly, or maybe it's the way that I constructed it. Please excuse me, you probably shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. But I also don't care that much. I've been wearing it a ton. I love it a lot. And I made it a bit cropped, and I used buttons from my stash. Is there anything else that you should know? I got the yarn from the knit shop in Santa Barbara, and the person who was working there, I think it was the owner, but it might not have been. I didn't ask. She was really, really, really lovely. She helped me a ton because I, as mentioned previously, just love knitting and the process of knitting, and I have in general felt quite overwhelmed by all of the patterns that are available, especially with like the idea of starting to knit an actual sweater. But I really wanted to knit a sweater. So she gave me, when I picked the yarn and asked her some questions about the yarn, she kind of gave me a couple of ideas of which patterns to start with. And a pattern that has a video to go with it, tutorial, was a really good one to start with. Not that I really need a video tutorial, but I felt like it was a good choice, and I think that I would probably recommend that for somebody who is starting with their first sweater. I think I might also recommend maybe making a pullover if you are knitting your first garment. That's, you know what? It depends. I think the experience of doing a right side and a wrong side versus just like mostly knitting in the round, it depends how committed you are. If you're quite committed and you like purling, then go for it with a cardigan first. And if you're a person who wears cardigans more, then go for a cardigan first. I definitely am more of a cardigan wearer, so that's why I did choose to make a cardigan and not a pullover. And I'm happy with that choice, but I could see if somebody was a very beginner knitter and they were trying to knit their first cardigan or their first garment, I would probably recommend choosing to go for something that will have more in the round. But also don't stop yourself. If you want to make something and you know that you're the type of person that will follow through on it, then go for it. Make whatever you want. And sometimes a challenge is the thing that's more exciting than necessarily like the finished object. But overall, very, very happy. I did, I think, cast on a few too many stitches in the neckband. It's a double knit neckband, button band, neckband. And I think that was an interesting learning experience, and I didn't redo it, and it hasn't been the end of the world, but it definitely slips off my shoulders a little bit here and there. So potentially I would maybe have made a smaller size, maybe one size down might have been the right move for me. And if I were to make it again, I might consider that. And the other thing that I would potentially consider is doing a little bit more shaping. This is a top-down raglan. This is a top-down raglan in construction, and I think this is a cropped pattern. No, it's not a cropped pattern. I made it a cropped sweater, and I think the back kind of, if I pull it up so that it's like at the right spot where I want it to be on up my neck, it looks higher in the back than it does in the front. So I think that if it would have been really nice to add in just like a strip of some sort of German short rows or something, some sort of shaping in the back. But I'm still wearing it. I still love it, and I will continue to wear it for the next couple of months as it's cold here in Los Angeles. And I'm very, very, very happy with it. The next thing that I cast on was this Vilma top, but that was not the next thing. I think it was the next thing I finished. So let that be noted. And then I knit a few more things. I want to just note that one of the things that I did make this year was actually this YouTube channel. And it's been a really, really, really cool experience to see myself actually following through on making these videos and posting them and not being super shy. And it's been cool to see all of the things and the ways that I've seen myself grow and the things I'm learning about myself and the things I'm learning about YouTube. And yeah, I've just had a lot of fun with it. I gave myself the challenge of doing a Vlogmas, and like I said, I learned a lot about myself. And it was a really good experience for me, I think. And it was also just really cool to see a month of making and to see how much I can produce video-wise, and like I can actually make a lot of projects, and I forced myself to be a bit more creative in general throughout the month, which I loved. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to continue throughout this year. I don't believe that it will be as like intense as Vlogmas or as Craftmas needed to be. I started with the goal of making a video a day, and then I ended up moving to a video every 3 days, and that was about like the right dynamic for me. And I think what I will do potentially next year would be to maybe do a weekly recap of what the week has held for me. So maybe like 3 or 4 videos that are Christmas or Vlogmas related. But within that, I did make a bag charm, a chunky bag charm. And I actually did not put this on Ravelry. I ordered a yarn that was supposed to come that was like a bit of a thicker yarn, and I didn't get to me in time. I needed to have this project done by December 6th. And maybe I actually did finish this before this. I did. And let's see. So what I did instead, I'd seen this concept in on Ravelry or on Instagram or something of somebody making a pattern for a bag charm kind of like this. I don't exactly remember exactly what it was. I didn't end up buying that pattern. I don't know what that pattern was called. I'm sure that you could find it if you looked up chunky bag charm on Ravelry, if this is not something that you feel comfortable making on your own. But essentially what I did was I used a kitchen twine yarn and I knit around it. I knit an I-cord around it and made a big long piece, and then made a second big long piece, or I made one that was longer than the other. And then at some point I tied them together and made this chunky knot. And then it was for a party. It was a book basket party, and I made this basket that was for the book Dark Matter. And I was inspired by, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but essentially that book, it kind of is a multi-dimensional book. So they learn how to do interdimensional travel. Is that right? Interdimensional? Multiversal travel. Maybe that's the right phrase. And so the character, in learning about this, grabs a grab bag and runs into the multiverse, and then just has to figure out how to navigate the multiverse. That's a part of the story. It's a lot more complicated than that in a fun way. If you like kind of sci-fi and thriller type of books, you might like this book. And I believe there is a Netflix show. I don't know, I haven't watched it, but I have read the book. And so that was the book that I chose. And so I made a grab bag, or a go bag. So it was just like this big backpack, and I used a gray and black backpack, and I wanted an accent color because the book is a really cool graphic, which is like gray and black, and then it also has like a bright orangey color. So I wanted to have a like bright orangey, like punchy red color that could be like connected to the front. This seemed like it sort of fit the idea of like, I mean, you might want like a paracord more than a cute knit little thing like this, but I just thought it was like a cute idea to add on to that grab bag. And so that had the book, and it had a bunch of other things, but I specifically made this project to add to that because I wanted it to have a little bit of the color. And I actually wish that it was a little bit more orangey and a little bit less red, but alas. And I ended up just grabbing some acrylic yarn from Michael's because the yarn that I had ordered did not come in. I don't even know what type of yarn it was. It's a little fuzzy, and I wouldn't recommend it for this type of project. I would recommend a little bit more of a less fuzzy yarn, something that has a little bit more of a like crisp, defined stitch. Honestly, maybe a cotton yarn might have even been better for this, so maybe I should have just used the red cotton yarn that I used for my strawberry, but alas, I think I wanted something that was a little bit brighter, and this is a little shinier and brighter, so that is probably why I went and bought it. It was kind of like a panic moment. I think I found out by the 5th that I wasn't going to get the yarn, and so I cast it on and immediately started this project, and then worked on it for like 12 hours straight to get it done, and also learned how to make I-cord really, really efficiently. So that was fun, especially an I-cord with a with an interior cord. But yeah, so that was fun. I did come back to it and tuck because there were extra pieces sticking down. So there's like 4 yarns here sticking down, and I ended up tucking the 2 into this stitch, and I think it looks really nice, and I have worn it on my bag a couple times, and I think it's just fun. And I would potentially make some version of this again. And I think I would also use a less heavy-duty carabiner. That's my other note for myself. But a fun, quick project that was technically a gift, but then it ended up being that I don't think that I gave a very good explanation of my basket. So it did get picked, but it got picked by my friends. And so then my friends and I kind of just traded. We all gathered together with our baskets and just took whatever we wanted from each basket. And my friends were like, we do really like this, but we probably won't actually use it. And so they were like, we think you should have it. So I have kept it, and it has lived on with me, and I have used it. But ultimately, it was more for like the cute aesthetics, and who knows why I decided that I needed to make a craft for that party in general. But I did, and it was fun, and that's just me, I guess. So that is this project. And then I have one final finished object for 2025, and that is this cutie patootie panda, which I cast on in December, on the 13th of December. I got the right needle size, but I did not change the yarn for the black or the white. So it did end up being a tiny bit smaller, but it was not equivalent. I think this yarn is a worsted weight, and the pattern calls for fingering weight. So I don't know why I thought that changing the needle size was going to really change the size of this character at all. It did change him a tiny bit. He's like 3/4 of an inch smaller than the other one. And I think if the other one had been stuffed fully, then, maybe he would be a bit bigger than this guy. But ultimately, he is about the same size. And then I did make the sweater. I haven't yet sewn in, I think, 1 or 2 ends, and I also have to sew on the buttons, but I'm waiting for those to be delivered. But I'm calling this guy done. I made this cute little beanie for him, and I made the jacket as the pattern calls for, but I didn't put the hood on. So I decided to do a silly little beanie instead, and I'm excited to get the buttons put on and then send this off to my friend and for her son to enjoy. But yeah, it's been a really, really fun, cute little project. I kind of got like very obsessed and addicted, and just like started on the 12th, and I think I was finished with his body by the 21st. And then the sweater, I think it was Christmas Eve that I worked on the sweater. And then the hat, I was making this hat up. I did use some of the hood information to help, but I kind of just winged it. And I do think if I were to make another beanie, which I might for my other guy, I would make the back a little bit longer and maybe come down a teensy bit further. But yeah, just allow it to be a little bit more like, it's a little bit straight, and I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit more like, has the spot for the ears, but then also allows the beanie to kind of like cover more of his head. But overall, I think it's hilarious. It's a teeny weeny beanie for this little panda. And yeah, once he has his buttons, he'll be all set to go and experience the world. And I stuffed him a teensy bit more than the other guy, so I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully it doesn't get too compacted over time, but if it does, I can always open it up and give it some more stuffing if I need to. But yeah, that is the second panda casted on and finished in December. And then in the month of December, I also made a few other things just for fun, so like some snowflakes and was there anything else? Oh, and some paint by numbers. My friends and I do a craft night, And so we worked on paint by numbers in December. But if you really want to see any of that stuff, you can see it in my Vlogmas. I'm not going to count it here. But yeah, this is everything that I made in 2025. Primarily knitting. I'm definitely like more focused and more excited about knitting, and I am really looking forward to seeing how things progress in my knitting life and also in this YouTube world and in the rest of the things that I have that I'm excited about making and doing in 2026. And I hope that I feel as proud of all of the things that I have accomplished when I get to next year at the beginning of 2027. So I just want to thank you if you've gotten this far for watching this video, and if you have enjoyed spending time with me, then consider giving me a follow, subscribe, comment, or like, and I would love to get to know you if this is something that, if crafting, making, knitting, any of this is something that you're interested in. Yeah, I would love to connect, and thank you so much for being here, and that's all for now.